Double standards. How Western media is tricking us into believing China is only evil and it's becoming uninvestable. In this video, I will give you my opinion on a couple of issues that just happened. For instance, today, the new privacy law and also the recent news around crackdowns in China, as well as the new regulations and the government trying to take from the rich and give to the poor, stuff like that. And you can hear it from my voice, it's a little bit emotional here because I'm feeling that China is being treated unfairly here. And so take this as an opinion piece. It's maybe a little bit more unstructured than usual, a little bit more emotional. It's a different opinion, I would say, than what you will see out there in the media. But anyways, I try to go into these topics, so let's go. So I wake up this morning and have news in my fantastic community chat here around new regulations by investors pulling down the HSI index again around personal information protection law, as well as some other news around those tax increases for the rich and so on. And so, yes, I see this fear everywhere in my community, for instance, in the replies to these comments, but obviously also in the investor community. And so I think it's time to, well, look at this more in specific. And additionally, I think we should put things into context. For instance, this news here, Federal Trade Commission refiles suit accusing social network of anti-competitive tactics aimed at neutralizing rivals. So this is the news about the US cracking down on Facebook and Google. But what will happen to the share price? Possibly nothing, right? Much into contrary to what will happen once again today to Chinese stocks based on this news. So I tweeted this one out this morning. So China is bringing out a new law to aim to protect privacy by offering individuals the legal right to say no to excessive data collection by business entities and even certain government agencies. Oh, look guys, even the government is cracking down on its own government agencies. The law states that companies need to obtain individual consent to obtain sensitive personal information such as biometrics, medical health, financial accounts and location. For platforms that illegally collect personal information, regulators can suspend or terminate the provision of their services. So China is catching up with some standards here of the West, because this is essentially pretty much like the European GDPR, and that makes a lot of sense because China is actually consulting a lot with German lawyers. China has a history of actually implementing quite a bit of German regulation and law, or at least consulting with them in terms of upgrading their law and standards, which recently gotten more enforced. And so I don't really understand the hype with all of those articles out there which are creating big headlines around a new ongoing crackdown in the Chinese tech industry, whereas this doesn't compare in a very different way to what is happening in the US and in Europe anyways. And yeah, I mean, the reaction to on the stock price level is quite different, although on the fundamentals, on the content side, why would you not agree to you need to give consent to the data that you're giving out? Actually, that sounds a lot like what Apple is doing, and Apple is, you know, kind of perceived as the good company in a way of doing that. They're the privacy company there, and if China is implementing something like this, they are the ones cracking down on user rights, on the tech companies and so on, which in my point of view is just a double standard here. And do you think companies like Tencent or Alibaba or Zepp Health and such will really have an issue of putting a consent button in the app and, you know, requiring user to consent to the data and location, similar to what we see today with Apple? In fact, most of them will actually have this already in place. So always think about critically, how will this really affect the companies on the bottom line of the business in terms of can they continue with their business model or not? And I can also speak a little bit about my own experience of launching an app in China, which has to do obviously with the e-commerce, the cross-border e-commerce side. And so that's also when I've gotten to know, I mean, I've read the texts in Chinese around what regulations apply for me as a foreigner selling into China. And I can pretty much say that most of the regulations were actually quite similar to what I can find in Germany in terms of how I can advertise products, how users need to consent with the data collection if they sign up and create an account in our app. So I really don't understand what is the big fuss here about China having those regulations in place. It's pretty much standard worldwide. Now, to also critically rethink my own opinion here, yes, China has done not so well in recently handling those kind of announcements, regulations, crackdowns. And in specific, I think the way that they handled the online tutoring in China, that was part of dramatic shifts in regulations. I think that one really scared investors, and that's possibly also making them more defensive about what might come and so on. And that is understandable in my views. I think this should really be at target of accusing of is it the right thing to actually privatize companies like this? I mean, I mentioned before like how there is a fundamental issue in the education sector, and I do think that is understandable the way that these kind of companies need to be more regulated there. But of course, taking them private, making them non-profitable, that is an issue that I think rightly so could be criticized. But broadening this out to suddenly saying that China is not capitalistic anymore, China is the source of all evil, and we immediately need to sell all of our stocks and it's becoming uninvestable, that is just a narrative which I think has become very popular in mainstream media, but I think is really, really wrong. And I think what people need to understand is that if you listen closely, who are these investors going out and say China becomes uninvestable, sell your Chinese stocks, and who are the media who's saying so that China is evil and you need to get rid of your investments in China? You need to look closely who they are and actually also what are their benefits with that and what might be their true intention behind it. I mean, we've now reading here in Bloomberg that the Chinese stocks are being shorted enormously, and there might be also political agendas and frankly also capital flows going back from China into US stocks, those kind of things that are kind of manufactured in a way and benefiting certain persons. And so as many investors are not quite sure what's going on in China, they're frankly just uneducated or don't have enough of commitment or also, let's say, conviction into China, then this becomes an easy target for Wall Street, for instance, to make money on this by shorting. And so I think it's really time to look closely of who are these people and then possibly never trusting them again about anything they have to say around China, because it's frankly just part of a game right now. Because although there are some things which you can criticize, on the other hand, this is becoming far too big on a scale that it's becoming ridiculous. Another news is about, for instance, here Bloomberg, next China, taking from the rich, that Xi Jinping basically is saying that, well, we have too many billionaires, that the gap is going too wide, and now we need to kind of curb that in a way and make China a more livable society for everyone again. And that was also really badly received yesterday, particularly also for some luxury stocks, and NIO was part of this sell-off. And to understand a little bit of the background on why things are happening, you need to look at some of those big reformers like Deng Xiaoping, and he was pretty much on a capitalist, open up China policy there, because he was the one famously saying, like, I don't care which color the cat has as long as she is catching mice. So if it's black or if it's white, it doesn't matter. And this is the Chinese pragmatism. And he was saying when China gets to a certain level of development, it will need to consider the question of distribution. The gap cannot be too small or too big. But if just a minority of people are wealthy, then that would be capitalism. And so this tells you a little bit of the understanding or the self-understanding of China there, which basically is saying that, well, we cannot have a too unequal society, for instance, like in the US, where we have lots of people living under extreme poverty. And then in China, this has been becoming an increasingly big problem recently. And this is kind of an issue for the government, because people become more and more unhappy if that is the case. So I think what is possibly the rightful take here is that we won't have less millionaires in the future in China, but instead they're trying to realign the system that more people can actually become wealthy, so that this gap is actually closing. And that would actually be, in essence, good news for NIO there, because that means actually more people can drive an electric car, and go out and enjoy their lifestyles and become more healthy, more wealthy, and more happy. And so in an essence, I would say even you can go as far as this and say that Neolife is kind of the new way of communist propaganda picture, the ideal that the party has in their minds in a way. I don't have those pictures with me right now, but you know, if you think about the neo-life where people are going out in nature and camping, where they're driving an electric car in a clean environment, clean air, beautiful lakes and stuff like that, enjoying good food and so on. This is really the ultimate goal of the Communist Party in the end. So it's really puzzling how investors can actually sell off NEO on the fact like this, really misunderstanding what is going to happen. The fact is that the policies in place are likely going to create more millionaires, more NEO car owners in the end, and the goal of the party should be that more people can actually live this kind of a NEO life. And so you know, that's the big misunderstandings in the press are cooked quite hot, and hot takes and lots of screaming in the media and so on. You get takes like this in a Motley Fool, which I, by the way, really recommend not to take this author too seriously on NEO. And they were saying, like, if Chinese consumers are urged to avoid status symbol purchases, demand for the sleek high-tech vehicles built by NEO and Tesla could well soften. This is really not the case. In fact, they want more people to own such kind of status symbol. That's the ultimate goal. This will be the KPI of the Communist Party. When more people can actually own this kind of a lifestyle, then they succeed. Not if less people can actually afford this. People really need to understand that. So I hope I can give you a different opinion on things like that. Sorry about that this was a little bit more on the emotional side, but frankly, I can't take this crap anymore. Like, it's really puzzling me how people can fall victim for that, and congratulations if you are selling at the bottom because of news like that, because I think ultimately this will pan out, the truth will win out, and certainly this is not what's going on the ground. So thank you guys for watching, and see you on the next one.